Hello and welcome to America Latina Story. Very little is known about the life of conquistador Baltasar de Ocampo, and he would probably have remained unknown in history had he not returned in 1610 for the Viceroy Marquis of Montes Claros, a brief account of historical events he had been witness to in the Vilcabamba region of Peru. His narration is extremely precious, for it is the only one dealing with the events described, and for the insights they bring into the colonization process. At the time of writing, Baltasar de Ocampo was a retired officer and gentleman farmer looking after his estate in the vicinity of Vilcabamba. His manuscript is kept in the British Museum. We are going to focus today on his narration of a significant uprising by African slaves that occurred in 1602 that threatened the whole fabric of the colonists' society. It is 8 years, most excellent Lord, since we were visited by the worst calamity it was possible for us to suffer. In this province, there are many factories all peopled by African slaves, whose disposition is soulless, without God or conscience. We saw 6 Spaniards and 1 priest engaged in a great conflict, the commencement of a general rising of Negroes of all the factories in the valleys of Quillapampa, Ondara, Amaipampa, and Uyayupampa. They were working in concert with the Negroes of Cusco, Arequipa, and Huamanca, that they might enter into that land and convert it into another Bayano, of which Your Excellence will have had notice. I received warnings as magistrate of the Holy Brotherhood, a post I then held and had done for 14 years with orders from the Viceroy. I had ordered the imprisonment of a woman, wife of a Negro highwayman, and of another Indian woman who was apprehended in a sugar-cane farm by my order because they had murdered 2 Indian husbands and a free mulatto, robbing them of their clothes, their provisions, in the farm where they were killed. The actual murderers were an Indian Pilcosone named Francisco Chichima and a Negro slave of the widow of Melchior del Perro, who had a factory there. I had them in irons and threatened that next day they would be quartered unless they told me where were their husbands. The negress, fearing death, and having seen justice executed on the others that same night, the captain Nicolas de Omachea being with me, a person who possessed a large estate, she called to him and begged him to ask me not to quarter her if she told a truth which involved the lives of all the owners of factories and mayordomos, besides many others. I went to where the prisoners were secured and asked the said Captain Omachea what the negress had told him, although I had heard everything. He answered that she was a drunken, lying creature who did not know what she was saying. In order to find out the truth, I used flattering words, telling her that if she would speak the truth, I would not only release her, but also give her liberty in the name of His Majesty. She then told me that, in the middle of that night, all the Negroes of Ormachea and of Toribio de Bustamante, and those of the widow of Melchior del Perro, and of all the other factories in the valleys of Ondara, Amaipampa, and Huayupampa, had conspired among themselves and with the Negroes of the cities of Cusco, Arequipa, and Huamanca to rise that night. This they actually did, burning the house and factory of Toribio de Bustamante, whom they intended to have killed. That night, they killed 24 Indians and a chief who came to put out the fire. Then they intended to kill Toribio de Bustamante and 4 Spaniards and a priest who were with him. Next, at midnight, they would attack Captain Ormachea and all that were with him. Asking her how she knew this, she declared on oath that on Sundays and festivals, when the Negroes assembled for drinking bouts, they talked in their mother tongue and went about to collect alms and stores of maize, money, and oca, which they had in granaries in the forests. Using good diligence, I sent the tidings to the governor Diego de Aquilar at Vilcapampa by 2 Indians who were very well paid, and 2 Negroes born in the house. The latter never appeared again, for they were killed and thrown into the river. But the Indians, knowing the country, reached Vilcapampa and gave the message. As soon as succor arrived, we made a wooden fort in which we assembled a number of Indian natives, posting sentries that we might not be taken by surprise. Here we were besieged for 30 days, defending ourselves with muskets and other arms. The Indians pointed out to us the direction from the top of the fort without showing their faces. The governor, Don Diego de Aquilar, sent 50 well-armed soldiers with their muskets, ammunition, and a good supply of cheese, biscuit, dried mutton, maize, and other things. Also a number of friendly Indians with bows and arrows. With this, we were able to raise the siege and put down the mutiny. For certain reasons given by Toribio de Bustamante, who was then building the Barefoot Monastery at Cusco, the Negroes cutting cedar and other trees for the work, justice was only executed on 8 or 10 of the ringleaders, and on the Pilcoson Indian, Francisco Chichima, who was one of the murderers and the most bellicose Indian we ever had to do with in our time. His valor was such that the Negroes themselves chose him as their captain and obeyed his orders, though generally Indians were downtrodden by the Negroes, with ill treatment both of word and deed, so that the Indians called the Negroes their lords and the Negroes called the Indians dogs. Such was the bravery of this Francisco Chichima that, being alone and the Negroes so many, he was their captain and chief, and they obeyed him in all things and feared him like death. Thank you for watching this program. Do not hesitate to subscribe to the channel. This is all for now. Goodbye.